Trouble is an interesting word, observes Donna Haraway, biologist. It derives from a 13th century French verb meaning to stir up, to make cloudy, to disturb. We, all of us on Terra, live in disturbing times, mixed up times, troubled and turbid times. I think few here would argue that we are living in troubled and turbid times. We have trouble in the world, and in response, we have troubled minds. So many are experiencing an odd feeling of numb unreality. Sound familiar? As if we have suddenly stepped into a Twilight Zone episode where reality TV has become the reality of the world. We could list and catalog the troubles we all know, like a poem written by Walt Whitman's evil twin, and that would leave out the all the daily troubles arising from simply making a life. There's no need to recite that entire poem. We don't have the time. But at the top of the list, we witness the decimation of variation and diversity, global climate change, the second largest extinction in the history of life on Earth, and linked to that, the resurgence of racism. As Hopkins, that great lover of nature's particularities, wrote, "For earth, her being is unbound, her dapple is at an end." Nature seems to be at a tipping point, being overtaken and replaced by culture. The world has become a Twilight Zone replica. There is trouble in the world. The world itself seems to be in peril. We feel it in the gut as it in groans, grinds. The world is a curious concept. We think of the world as that container that we all exist in. But the world has a mysterious dual existence. We exist in it, and it exists in us. So trouble in the world becomes trouble in mind. Too many outcomes that seem to be at variance with our most cherished values are being actively promoted by them, by the other, by a political and commercial world that organizes everything in terms of individual self-interest. And trouble in the world translates to trouble in mind. Trouble in mind manifests as feelings of fear and anxiety. The perceived scope of the trouble fosters hopelessness, resignation, despair. It is indeed no country for old men. The evil is so pervasive, so big. And the divisions self-perpetuate as off her once skein-stained, veined variety upon all, on two spools part, pin, pack, now her all in two flocks, two folds, black, white, right, wrong, reckon but wreck, but mind but these two. What to do about all this trouble? We must grow tentacles. That's right, tentacles. Roots, rhizomes, be rooted in your place and make connections, reforge links, knit back a network. The body is so intimately linked with the world, and so goes the body, there goes the mind. As Unitarian Universalists, we announce that we have no creed, but we have agreement on a set of principles, currently 7 in our congregation. We now have 8, thank you. And I say currently because every 15 years we are supposed to revisit, re-examine, and potentially update this set of principles. At General Assembly in June, we were told that this examination is overdue and that process is beginning. As they now stand, our first principle states that we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The seventh principle suggests that we respect the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Well, the voice of the old guard humanists prevailed at General Assembly, rejecting the suggestion that the word person in the first principle be changed to being, the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Perhaps it is an unnecessary change if we blend 1 and 7. I would recommend stronger language for the seventh principle, not just that we respect a weak T word, that interdependent web, but that we hold it sacred and protect it. Because here is what you might say a capital T truth. Biologically speaking, each one of us is not one. There is no such creature as an individual. We are each a collection, a congeries of many, many, probably millions of species. You are a committee. We each have multiple selves, multiple and sometimes conflicting interests, even within the confines of your skin. And the skin is not the boundary of the person, as I hope you experienced just a little bit in the meditation. Fear, sadness, anger, resentment, loneliness, depression, addiction, all these things are symptoms of a creature in pain. A creature who every day is feeling parts amputated, like a camel being cut in half. Dismembering, organs being removed. But the seeds of life on earth can be transplanted and adapt and flourish in all sorts of unexpected and always dangerous places and times. We can experience, in the words of Octavia Butler, wounded flourishing, not simply survival in exile, diaspora, abduction, and transportation. The earthly gift burden of the descendants of slaves, refugees, immigrants, travelers, and of the indigenous too. Get proximate, Brian Stevenson told us at the Ware lecture at General Assembly. Get close and personal. Press up against. And reach beyond humanity. Secure many kinds of kinships. And an important process of evolution goes by the big name of symbiogenesis. What that means is that surprising new forms, new ways of being emerge when two organisms become intimate. They press close. They are companions, which literally means they break bread together, share their mess. They become messmates. Spread your net wide over the surface of your life, and the depth will manage itself. Practice ultra-radical hospitality. We are living in an experiment. You are the experimenter. You set the boundaries and identify and limit the variables of the experiment. You are the experiment. The biter is the bitten. Gaston Bachelard wrote, "If one doesn't put one's reason at stake in an experiment, the experiment is not worth attempting." Poet Roger Houston, in his book, Keeping the Faith Without a Religion, sums it well. Life is an unfathomable mystery. Its beauty and sublimity inspire in us reverence and wonder, and we can intuit that nothing, but nothing, including ourselves and our own little life, is outside of or exempt from an inherently intelligent, perpetual unfolding in the present moment. We can recognize that despite our loneliness and feelings of separateness, all of us are intimately joined in one great unity of life, seen and unseen, spiritual and material. So is the experiment worth it? If it is, it requires that we stay with it, in the present, here and now. I opened with Donna Haraway, so for the sake of symmetry, I close with her. The task, she wrote, is to become capable with each other in all our bumptious kinds of responses. Mixed up times are flowing with both pain and joy, with vastly unjust patterns of pain and joy, with unnecessary killing of ongoingness, but also with necessary resurgence. The task is to make kin in lines of inventive connection as a practice of learning to live and die well with each other in a thick present. Our task is to make trouble, to stir up potent responses to devastating events, as well as to settle troubled waters and rebuild quiet places. In urgent times, many of us are tempted to address trouble in terms of making an imagined future safe, of stopping something from happening that looms in the future, of clearing away the present and the past in order to make futures for coming generations. Staying with the trouble does not require such a relationship to times called the future. In fact, staying with the trouble requires learning to be truly present. Not as a vanishing pivot between awful or Edenic pasts and apocalyptic or salvific futures, but as mortal critters entwined in myriad, unfinished configurations of places, times, matters, and meanings. There's trouble in mind, and we are blue. But we won't be blue always. The sun's going to shine in our back door today. As we sing a closing hymn and you encounter the word God, let that freighted and fraught word represent the interrelated web, or as suggested by Bruno Latour, the indisputable framework of ordinary existence, or simply Gaia.